Thank you, Jean. It's always informative, and I want to thank your staff for the tremendous work that you do. We know the challenges that you have, same challenges that all these agencies have, which is trying to meet our expectations with the staff that you have. And so I just want to applaud this effort and applaud your work. I want to focus on CMS. In your report, you said CMS could save billions of dollars by improving the accuracy of its payments to Medicare Advantage programs through you know that word. Yeah, I'll get there. Adjustments to account for diagnostic coding differences between Medicare Advantage and traditional Medicare. Now, the Medicare program is a program that is going to be stressed into the future. We look at that booming deficit, and you know, it's not an understatement to say we don't necessarily have a deficit problem, we have a healthcare growth problem. So we should be looking for every penny of efficiency and savings that we can find. Can you elaborate on what you mean? And billions of dollars sounds like a pretty sizable sum. Yeah, what do we need to do to get that done?
Yeah, right. What happens is you have the Medicare fee-for-service program,
right,
and then you have the Medicare Advantage, which is on a capitated rate. But apparently, what the Medicare fee-for-service providers have a different diagnostic coding system than the Medicare Advantage system. So that, you know, basically, in our analysis, the same person in both systems would look sicker in the Medicare Advantage system than they would in the fee-for-service system. Now, our whole philosophy as a government is to obviously pay people who need more medical care, or sicker, if you will, at a higher rate than people who are healthy people and don't need it. So they need to, in order to make the systems comparable, there's a risk adjustment factor where they take into account the characteristics of the beneficiaries. We found they weren't using the most recent data available to make this adjustment factor. They weren't considering certain illnesses and diseases or other characteristics of the population. They weren't considering which of the beneficiaries might also be eligible for Medicaid programs. And so we believe a better methodological adjustment factor could be put in place that would save the government the billions of dollars.
Is this a problem across the board with Medicare Advantage, or do we see some providers actually billing differently than other providers?
Let me ask Cindy to come back to the table. She's our healthcare expert. But she's coming. The one area that I'm also concerned about our report touches on is the growth in managed care for Medicaid, which there are no program real integrity factors in place. So that's another area where I'm very concerned about, because in Medicaid, managed care is growing exponentially. Right. So some of these lessons for Medicare also potential.
The lessons for Medicare Advantage should be learned when we are moving towards managed care and Medicaid.
Exactly.
Cindy?
Your question was whether...
My question is, do we see other, you know, a variance between different providers under the Medicare Advantage program?
No, as the Comptroller General said, they're paid under a capitated rate. The difference is in the risk scoring, which is a relative measure of the health needs of the beneficiaries.
So the problem is institutional and systemic across the board?
It is, yes.
Okay. The other thing, I want to make a point to Senator Carper's point. I once upon a time in a former life took over as tax commissioner for Senator Conrad. We started a program called Fair Share, where we invested $1 of resources to the tax department and returned $10, and over a period of 10 years proved time and time again that those investments, when targeted and used appropriately, could in fact advance a revenue goal. And so there's a lesson learned from maybe state government. But I want to get to the report because there's a lot in there, and you know, it's frustrating for those of us who look at it and say, why aren't we doing all of this as soon as possible? But when you do the report, do you say this is a no-brainer, this would be easy to do, you know, it's low-hanging fruit, and we ought to prioritize that project maybe over some of the stuff that's a little more difficult to do?
We, you know, we're basically taking all the work that we do in GAO. What's in this report is really a small subset of the work that we do every year. We respond to over 900 requests a year from Congress and do a lot of different work, and about 80% of our recommendations actually are implemented over a 4-year period of time. So what you have in this report is really the
20%.
yeah, right.
But what I'm saying, within the 20%,
Yeah.
have you ever said, let's rank them?
Yeah.
And
No,
tell people?
No, we haven't done that. We've identified ones for cost savings and try to provide scoring on there. But, I mean, our belief is that, they're all pretty important areas and that can yield efficiencies. And they're not concentrated in jurisdiction in any one committee. I mean, they're across the federal government's activity.
I get what you're saying, but I hope you understand what I'm saying, which is
Right.
that there are probably some things that are easier to implement than other things that you're recommending in your judgment, and these are things that it would not be irresponsible of the Senate to say, we want this done not tomorrow, but yesterday.
Yeah, right, right.
And-
So I think the easy things to do are in the 37% that have already been implemented.
So all the 20% are equally difficult?
Yeah,
Is that what
right,
you're telling me?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and I'll yield back my time.
But I'll give thought to what you said.